Rachel Holt for NESN.com. Welcome to our fantasy football podcast. Thanks for tuning in. It's week 5 of the NFL season, and I'm joined by Adam Rank of NFL Media Now. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I wanted to take a page out of Bill Belichick's book and just say on to week 5, because week 4 was a disaster for me. I had too much faith. If you listen to the show, you know I have too much faith in the Lions, but how did it turn out for you?
Not the best, to be honest. I think we're on the same boat there. And I lost in my Survivor League, which was the most devastating loss of them all. Of course, we love to ask you. In a moment of utter confusion, lack of clarity, I picked the Cardinals to win against the Rams, which I know has different meaning for you because you're there in LA, so you're right in the heart of things. It was terrible. I don't know why I did it. I know you're already out in one of your Survivor Leagues. I don't know if you're in a couple. So you're in the same boat, but it stings.
It really does. It's disappointing. It seems so obvious. I think most people do the Survivor pool, especially the first time they do it, and they think, like, this is so easy. I just got to pick one winner every week. Done. And then you're out by week. For you, it was week 4. For me, it was week 2.
I don't know, but what for you was the big, terrible takeaway from week 4? What happened?
Well, I think that the Lions came back to earth a little bit, so that was a little bit disconcerting because it was a great matchup, you know, and the Bears hadn't been playing very well, at least not defensively. And even if in stretches when they had played well, they had suffered so many injuries, it just looked too obvious. And I guess that's part of the problem with the NFL is that when things seem so obvious, they can somehow go the other way. I really wish I would have invested more in Steelers because any team that I have that has Antonio Brown is doing just fine, and I really like that team. And then the ones where you're just kind of like, actually it's the ones with Odell Beckham Jr. is the one that's been the most disturbing, and just trying to weave my way through that. And it's embarrassing watching him, you know, drop passes and throw temper tantrums and lose fights to kicking nets and things like that. So it's troubling a little bit. So hopefully, the one good thing, though, is that what we should remember is if you look at what Odell Beckham Jr. did in 2015, the numbers are very similar, except that he had 2 touchdowns in the first 4 weeks, hasn't reached the end zone yet. Now I just want Eli Manning to focus in on, like, helping out your guy. Like, throw him the ball. Like, he is your number one guy. You need him to be successful. So even if you've got to force it, channel your inner Ryan Fitzpatrick and force him the ball. That's what you're supposed to do, and hopefully he can turn that around because it's disgusting a little bit. And remember, though, last week, or actually the game the Falcons played in week 3 against the Saints, he had 16 receiving yards, and everybody was ready to bury him, and everybody was like, oh, my gosh, there's too many weapons. He'll never be an elite player once again. And then next thing you know, he has 300 receiving yards.
Okay, I have to ask you about Odell Beckham Jr. because I, too, own him in my league of records, and he hasn't been producing the way I need him to. It looks like he's either heading for a suspension, he's going to get benched by the team, or he's either going to channel all of his emotions and have a killer game against the Packers. So what's your prediction? Do you think he's just on the verge of greatness, or should we be a little concerned?
I opt for the latter, and again, it's probably mostly hoping rather than anything else because similar to you, I have him in my league of record, and I've already lost Keenan Allen, and I can't afford any more losses at the top up there. So I'm hopeful that he can turn it around. He's got a great matchup. The Packers have been very generous to opposing quarterbacks and receivers, and perhaps getting to once again shine in the lights of prime time will propel him to the lofty heights that we put out there for him. But, yeah, somebody on that team needs to kind of step up. And I wish Eli was more of a leader. I feel a lot of it has to do with Eli because he's not getting him the ball often enough, and they're not trying to find creative ways to get him the football. The Vikings obviously have a tough defense, and it shouldn't have been a surprise going into that game, but they should have figured out, like, look, we got to do something with Odell Beckham Jr. We got to find ways to make him successful. That is your job as a coach and as a coaching staff, you know, to do that, and also as a quarterback. So I hope they do a better job of that this weekend. But on the same time, you know, Odell Beckham Jr. needs to realize, like, people, once they see that little bit of weakness, they're going to go after it. It's like, you know, if one of your friends has a a complex about a sweater that they're wearing or something like that. Like you'll tease them about that forever. When I started losing my hair, my buddies loved to make fun of me. You know, I was a younger man losing my hair, but at some point you have to realize like my animosity or my feelings are only fueling this fire. So the quicker I embrace it and be like, yep, I'm bald, then the better off you're going to be. And I wish Odell Beckham Jr. would just have a similar sentiment. Like, it's hard. Like, people are trying to get under my skin. So I either need to either embrace it, you know, or just kind of, you know, funnel it under. But realize, too, when people are, you know, targeting him like they are, like near the sideline, he's got to do a better job of flopping. Like he needs to study some Ric Flair film or something and find the front face flop, or watch a couple of NBA games. Dude, become a flopper. Like even LeBron, like look, there's no shame in it. LeBron James was flopping in an NBA Finals game. I don't think it's beneath anybody anymore. Like learn to flop, draw some flags, and then maybe that kind of stuff will stop.
Well, for both of our sakes, I hope he either learns to flop or just gets it together over there because it's about time in week 5. And there's some more questions that we're dealing with. That's not the only question out there, is Odell Beckham Jr. It's a bye week, so 4 different teams don't have games: the Jaguars, the Chiefs, the Saints, and the Seahawks. But most importantly of them all is the biggest news in the NFL right now: Tom Brady returning to the lineup for the New England Patriots. And we're not only going to see Tom Brady, we're going to see angry Tom Brady, which is the best Brady there is. He's a scary, scary man. And the Pats play the Cleveland Browns, which at this point doesn't even seem like a fair matchup. What is your prediction for this game on Sunday when Brady returns from his Deflategate scandal? It's all behind us, and now we're moving forward.
I'm predicting a lot of pain for Cleveland, and I know that thankfully that they have the LeBron James championship. The Indians are in the playoffs, although they're playing the Red Sox. So I don't know how great that is going to be for them. This just isn't going to work out well for Cleveland. And again, the angry Tom Brady is obviously the best Tom Brady. And you go back to 2007 when he lit the NFL on fire to the tune of 50 touchdown passes. I will say this, though, and anybody who's expecting it to play out similarly, is that he hasn't played in 4 weeks. So it's going to be a little bit of a transition period trying to get back into and get his sea legs under him, so to speak. But in addition to that, like he's 10 years older than he was the last time he was going through this, or 9 years, whatever, if you want to split hairs. So he's a little bit of an older man, so I don't know that he's going to have the same umph to be able to carry it up for the entire season. Like there's going to be some weeks where he's not going to throw 5 touchdown passes, although they'll be rare. There will be a couple of weeks where it's not quite that good, and he'll, again, go back to leaning on LeGarrette Blount, and hopefully Deion Lewis can come back at some point. And I really like James White and everything that they got going on. But when you look at the offense, though, the one thing that I really hope is that Rob Gronkowski can get back and play very well, and that they can use that 2 tight end set with him and Martellus Bennett to really take advantage of some mismatches that are going to present themselves. So I think this is going to be great. I'm looking forward to what Brady's going to be able to do. I think that he can still play. Even though he's not the young man that he was in 2007, he can still play. I like the way he takes care of himself. He's not like Manning just looked like have you ever lifted, bro? Like Tom Brady looks like a man who's in shape, who knows how to take care of himself, who when he goes to the grocery store, he's buying the good stuff. He's not buying Papa John's pizza or going to that diner or wherever he is and eating fries every day. And oh, by the way, speaking of grocery stores, we did see that press conference out here, or it was back there, of course, but we saw it out here with the guys asking Gronkowski about his fantasy status and everything like that, and how Rob is getting harangued in the grocery store by people being like, "Hey, you're hurting my fantasy team." First of all, I'm assuming that if you're shopping at the same grocery store as Gronkowski, you live in the New England area, which means you're probably a Patriots fan, which means leave him alone. Who cares?
Right.
Your fantasy team should be second. Like, fantasy is important to me as a Bears fan, as somebody who lives in L.A., because we don't have anything. We have nothing else football-wise to really hang our hats on. You guys have a good football team, so you're fine. And so if that's your only interaction with Gronkowski, is that really where you want to go? Like, he's like the most enjoyable person on the planet, and you're going to harangue him about your fantasy team? You should be wishing him well, asking him for some cool tips of nearby bars or anything fun to do, but don't worry about your fantasy team when you run into Gronk.
I agree. Stop harassing Gronk. Stop accosting him in the frozen food aisle. The man just wants to get his food. I don't know. It's just a New England thing about us.
You have so much to be thankful for, though. Your Red Sox are in the playoffs. I'm assuming your hockey team's fine. I don't pay attention to the Eastern Conference, although I have to because I'm playing fantasy hockey. But I noticed my team's like all West Coast people. I've got obviously a ton of Kings, but also dudes from the Sharks and Vancouver and places like that.
Oh, we should be happy. You're right. But going off of this, is he one of the guys? Is Martellus Bennett one of the guys? Is Edelman one of the guys whose production is going to spike now? Are fantasy owners going to be rejoicing now that Brady's back?
I think they will. I think that the offense will be obviously a lot different with Tom Brady back there. I think if Garoppolo had been able to stay the course, that we could have seen some more production from those guys. But really, for a player like Gronk, it comes down to his health. Like, obviously, he's being hampered by that hamstring injury, and he just needs to get healthy and needs to get back into doing Rob Gronkowski type things. And I think that he's just going to need a little bit of rest. I think that now that Tom's back, I hope that they aren't in a position where they need to rush him out there. They can limit his snaps. They've got Martellus Bennett there. They've got a whole host of receiving options there. And obviously with LeGarrette Blount, they've been able to run the ball just as well. So I think it's going to be a little bit disappointing from a fantasy perspective for those people at the Safeway or whatever who are mad at Gronk. You're probably going to continue to be upset with him for a couple of weeks as he continues to fight through this hamstring injury. But I see the ripple effect being guys like Julian Edelman having a nice season. I think Martellus Bennett. I love Bennett this week. I'm going to be playing him in a couple of leagues. And even looking deeper, like perhaps Chris Hogan can emerge or Malcolm Mitchell. Somebody that if you watch Malcolm Mitchell, and if you watch his tape from college, you really see that there's a good player there who's so close to breaking out at some point. I have some really deep leagues where I'm like, okay, I just can never cut him. Like I actually, it's a sick deep league, and it's a 16 teams, and I've got Mitchell on it, and I've got Laquan Treadwell, and I'm like, you know what, I understand that Laquan Treadwell was a first round pick, but the Vikings aren't using him. Like, I'm cutting him because I don't want to let go of Malcolm Mitchell.
Malcolm Mitchell. We'll keep that moving forward. In terms of quarterbacks, Brady is not the only quarterback shaking up the league and creating a lot of questions. Carson Palmer, he's out. Drew Brees, it's a bye week. Russell Wilson, bye week. Blake Bortles, bye week. So for week 5, who are some quarterbacks that are primed to have a great week?
Well, not only that, but in addition to people who have bye weeks, Matt Ryan should be considered on a bye week because he's playing the Denver Broncos. So it's disappointing. Like, he's coming off that 500-yard performance, right, and you can't play him because you're like, I'm not playing anybody against that Broncos defense. The only player I honestly, and this is not pandering, the only quarterbacks I would play against the Broncos would be maybe Aaron Rodgers, probably not, but Tom Brady for sure. I think that he would go out, especially now. He's going to go out and beat those guys next time he sees them. But I would bench those guys. Obviously, though, some of the streamable quarterbacks out there for you. If somehow Carson Wentz is still available this late, it would be a surprise to me. But give it a shot. I know one kid hit me up on Twitter who was like, "Yeah, I was just looking for." I was going to pick up Case Keenum, and I saw Carson Wentz, so I picked him up. So obviously, if somebody with that pedigree is out there, that should be your first choice. Just give it a shot. And the worst thing that happens is he's not there. If he's unavailable for you, I would suggest you go pick up Brian Hoyer, who's played very well in the previous 2 weeks in replacing Jay Cutler. He's had 4 touchdowns. More importantly, no turnovers. He's got a great matchup this week against the Indianapolis Colts, who have not only been generous to quarterbacks and receivers this year, they're coming off that London game. And it was weird because the Colts are the first team in NFL history to refuse the bye after the London game. They wanted to save it for later in the year, which I didn't realize you could do something like that, but apparently they can. It's not like you're the Giants. The Giants get a late bye week every year. Look it up. Like, it's sick. It's ridiculous. Not to fuel any fires out there, but it's awful and it's terrible. But so the Colts are coming off that London game, and we've never seen this before. We don't know how this is going to happen, and there's a lot of disarray with that Colts organization. A lot of people are calling them out. It's a little scary because they are at home, and everybody's calling them out, and everybody is saying this Colts team is a mess. To where you start to think like, oh boy, they're going to come out and have the game of the year. Like, they're going to play great. Their defense is going to be coming along, and if there were other options outside of Brian Hoyer, I would certainly look at it, just because of the sneaking fear in me. Because, again, going back to last week, anytime anything looks like it's too good to be true, it probably is. So I would, but still, the numbers say Brian Hoyer should be a great play this week, and he's much better. If you're really nervous about that, though, you can pick up the Denver quarterbacks, either Trevor Siemian or the other guy, Paxton Lynch. That should be a great matchup for them, especially playing at home at Mile High. So, and the thing with Siemian, his injuries, his non-throwing shoulder, so he should be okay. And if you're super desperate, gotta go Case Keenum. You know what? Maybe consider just not playing a quarterback. No, I'm kidding. But it's desperate times. I've looked. I've got a couple of bye week situations, and I had Carson Palmer, and I'm like, this is awful. This is I mean, you got to choose on Thursday night if you wanted to play either Drew Stanton or Blaine Gabbert, and you're like, nah, I'll wait. I'm good.
It's hard out there, and I have Drew Brees in my league, and I will be starting Brian Hoyer, so I'll let you know how that works out for me. A little concerned going in, but hey.
I'm doing it too. I'm with you. Like I'm in that situation. If you have a quarterback on a bye or Matt Ryan, then I go Brian Hoyer. But when you look at somebody like Matt Stafford, a lot of people probably have been playing him disappointed last week because he didn't have a great game against the Bears. Now he's got the Eagles defense, and the Birds are tough. That's a legitimate defense. Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, used to be the head coach of the Detroit Lions, obviously, and there's the revenge factor. So it's scary, but I would still go with Stafford over Hoyer, even though the numbers say everything. But I'm like, I'm going to stick with Stafford.
And a lot of questions at the quarterback position, also about running backs. Are there any guys that you think are going to have a great week 5, looking at the matchups, looking at all the different factors, who you think this is their week?
It's one of those things, too, like Jordan Howard was great last week against the Lions. It was a great matchup, so that really wasn't much of a surprise. And another good matchup this week against the Colts. But again, I'm like, oh, no, this is going to be the game of the year for the Colts. Just already dreading that. But he's got a great matchup. I think DeAndre Washington, who is a deep sleeper, coming into the season might get an opportunity to play. Latavius Murray has been walking around in a boot. It looks like he might not play this week, and that could mean a lot of opportunity for DeAndre Washington to go out there and kind of take that job away. Like, a lot of people were excited about him coming into the draft and felt that he could really step up, and he's got a good matchup against the Chargers this week, because that's a tough break for the Chargers. They lose Jason Verrett now on top of everybody else that they've been losing. So he's somebody who could step up, and I could see him playing a bigger role. But otherwise, man, it's slim pickings there at the running back position. Terrence West did kind of establish himself as the number one guy for the time being in Baltimore. He had a great matchup last week. He's got another great matchup this week, so we'll see how much of the snap share he gets. Kenny Dixon, of course, could be returning. He's going to be somebody who's going to be battling for some time there. He should be the third down back off the top, could eventually be the 3-down back, but Terrence West kind of has that kind of feel to him, similar to what Justin Forsett did a couple of years ago, where he was, everybody was just expecting him to fall off, and he never did.
Because we are both nice people, I know we already mentioned that we're both out in our Survivor leagues, but that doesn't mean that everyone else is out. So in week 5, it looks, if I was still in a league, I would pick the Patriots, hands down, to win. But in terms of teams that are looking favorable to get the W, who would you pick?
Yeah, it seems like such a nice contrarian pick to go with somebody other than the Patriots, because I think everybody is going to be on them. But Baltimore, if you haven't used them yet, they're a pretty nice option. If you look at Kirk Cousins' history, he doesn't play very well against teams that are good, and we can debate whether the Ravens are truly good or not. But they're 3-1. They've been playing a lot better. I think we've seen enough out of this organization to know that if this team is 3-1, they're probably good. It's not like a team it's kind of unexpectedly good, because the Ravens, I think that they've got enough credit with us to be like, look, this is a good organization. Ozzie Smith, John Harbaugh, they know what they're doing. They're crybabies. They're crybabies, and the whole reason their season fell off last year because they had to go and tell the Colts, watch out for the deflated balls because they were beating us, because they were outsmarting us. But all that being said, they're still a good organization, I guess. So that would be one I would look at if you really wanted to go with a contrarian play. Perhaps the Raiders playing host to the Chargers, because man, the Chargers just I know they're being out here in Southern California, you know darn well that the Chargers always get up for that game, but man, at some point you just can't expect them to overcome the loss of Keenan Allen, Manti Te'o, obviously Jason Verrett. They've had another big injury too, and it's ridiculous. So that would be a decent one. I think Green Bay plays very well coming off of bye weeks, but I would fear the Giants. No, I don't fear the Giants. So the Green Bay would be, but I think there are safer Green Bay plays later on in the season, and perhaps safer Denver ones too. So I'd say, you know what? Don't get smart. Don't get cute. Play the Patriots and go forward.
Learn from our mistakes and just pick the Patriots. Just do it.
Yeah.
Adam, good stuff as always from you, and we can always find more from you because you're a big deal. You're on the show Fantasy and Friends on the NFL Network. You're always on Twitter answering people's questions, like you said. So I have to ask you, is there anyone cool coming on the show this week?
We did have Danny Masterson.
That 70s show.
He was on the show on Wednesday. Le'Veon Bell surprised us with a call. Actually, he Skyped in on Tuesday. That's one of the cool things about all the technology that we're putting on Fantasy and Friends is that dudes can just drop in. You know, they got the number and they can come in and make a guest appearance, and it was totally unexpected. So it's kind of it's cool, you know, being a part of the show and finding out, you know, oh, by the way, we have a special guest on, and boom, it's Le'Veon Bell. You're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this. So Friday, I think we're working on a couple of things. So I would just suggest you guys DVR it and watch it after all the great NESN programming. I don't know if you guys play baseball on Friday or not. Probably, right? It would be weird if you didn't. But if there's a game on, I understand. You know, you got your sports teams. And listen, if the Angels were playing, I would be watching this show later too. But if you can DVR it and give it a shot and let us know what you think, we would appreciate that.
Of course, and if you're getting surprised by people, I guess we can be surprised as well. So we look forward to that. And as always, thanks for the insight.